conversations and tell people the truth and be able to tell them what you're hearing without also then turning around and publicly then trying to embarrass them.
Biden exited the election last week. Democrats have now coalesced around Vice President Harris to be the nominee. Here's the latest from the Summer Games in Paris.
Team USA took down Serbia for their first win of the Paris Olympic men's basketball tournament. LeBron James was a dominant force on both ends of the floor.
LeBron James, perfect defense. Here comes James in transition. James, get out of his way for two.
LeBron had 21. The women's basketball team looking to open Paris 2024 with a victory when it faces Japan on Monday. In swimming, Carson Foster finished third in the men's 400-meter individual medley. To capture the bronze medal, he finished 5.71 seconds behind France's Léon Marchand, who set an Olympic record on his way to the gold. In the women's 100-meter butterfly, Tori Husk and Gretchen Walsh finished first and second to win the gold and silver. Nick Fink also took home a silver medal after tying for second in the men's 100-meter breaststroke. Team USA finishes the opening weekend with 12 total medals, the most of any nation, including 3 gold. France has 8 total medals, Japan with 7. This has been an NBC News Radio Olympic report.
Justin Timberlake is due back in court on Long Island Friday to be rearraigned on drunk driving charges. The pop singer was charged with DWI following a traffic stop in Sag Harbor on July 18th. Timberlake is currently on tour in Europe.
I'm Chris Coraggio, NBC News Radio.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters 1932.org.
Thank you for tuning in for this edition of Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali. I am Attorney Zulu Ali with the Justice Watch crew, Rosanette Nunez, Michael Bilal Clark, Dr. Kil Bashir, Andrew Rodeman, and Ryan Rhodes. This week, like every week, we'll be discussing critical legal and social justice issues that are impacting our community. Back again, man.
Yeah.
Back again. A lot has happened, but a lot has happened since the last time we were here, man. We're talking about, what's going on with the election, what's going on with former Vice President Donald Trump, as well as, what's been going on with Vice President Kamala Harris. Of course, a lot of people were concerned as to whether she could, be the top of a ticket against such what many would believe is a powerful Republican nominee with his massive support. However, it looks like, at least initially, like she's going to probably be able to hold her own. I think that it's going to be a lot different than I think that we initially expected with her running for presidential nomination. I don't believe that she's picked a VP, but I would imagine that that's going to be important. I know that there's a couple of people that they were, talking about, with her potentially. I think Mark Kelly, the Democratic from Arizona, he's one of the individuals that they talked about. And there was another individual that I saw earlier. Speaking of vice presidents, man, what's up with your boy Vance, man? That guy, he's a
wild boy,
man.
A wild boy.
Yeah.
I mean, he just been coming at it, ain't
he? Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not to mention the fact that he criticized Trump years ago.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be some problems with that ticket. And this is why. I mean, the one thing about Pence is kind of like one of those dudes that really didn't bring nothing nor necessarily took anything away from Trump and his campaign, right?
Yeah.
But this guy, he's too polarizing, and it may create some conflict between Trump and is his name Vance?
Yeah.
And because he's getting more and just as much publicity as Trump. Not to mention that, he doesn't have very favorable. What was the Catwoman thing? Did you hear about that?
Nah.
You didn't hear about that? We was talking about the cat. Did you hear that, Joe?
I heard the Mountain Dew one.
What was the Catwoman thing about? You remember? Something about, like women, not having children and saying
Oh
that
yeah,
about
yeah,
Kamala Harris. I think that's what it had to do with,
Oh, okay.
right?
yeah.
And then they was being criticized because they think that he's going to alienate a lot of people by those type of statements. And when it was confronted with the statement, he kind of doubled down on it instead of trying to
Mm.
back away from it, and maybe even saying that he made a mistake when he made the statement. But he doubled down on it. He stayed with it. And now all of a sudden the call and the issue now is that Kamala Harris has a very low IQ. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and that's what then, and that's kind of like the thing the theme now, that she's not intelligent, and which is, I guess par for the course, but that's kind of, and listening to him talk, man. I mean, it still remind. I mean, at first I thought it's like who. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm trying to get you. Tell me, man. I mean, what is the attraction? What is the attraction? I don't get it, man.
What with him?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't get it either. But I think that there's gonna be problems between him and Trump.
Yeah.
I think he just got this hidden agenda, and he's just going along with, he going along with the flow right now, and that's going to be a big, if there ever be a debate, that's what's going to come into play. If you look at the history of him and saying the things about Trump, right? I believe in his heart of heart, he still believed that way, but he's going to ride this wave because he thinks similar to Trump in terms of his business mind and so forth and so on. But then on the flip side, if you look at Kamala Harris, this is somebody that Donald Trump then gave money to.
Yeah.
Right. And that's going to come an issue. So now if they ever get into that debate, she's going to say, well, what's the difference between me now and what's the difference between for me back then? You gave to me then. So I think it was good for them to put her up there because they couldn't put nobody else up there that would actually be able to take the lead. They had to put someone up there that was out front, that the people know. You know what I'm saying? They couldn't just throw a nobody up there because a nobody is not going to garner that much support in this short period of time. And so they had to put her up there. But here's the thing. When you see somebody that brings in $81 million in 24 hours for her campaign, that speaks volumes.
It's up to 100 now, I think they said.
It's up to 100.
Yeah,
that speaks volumes.
Yeah. I think that, and going back to like the Vance thing and like they're picking at her intelligence, I think they know they don't have many things they can like attack her for.
Yeah.
With Joe Biden, he was old. He can't do this physically anymore.
Mm-hmm.
With her, like, there's not any places that you can go criticizing her that won't hurt you. And like saying that she's incompetent is the only angle you really have. And it's not going to stick. But of course, we know they have to try something. Like, what's he calling her? Laughing Kamala now? He's trying to get those jokes off. And it's not hitting the same. Yeah. Like last week, I guess I won't say I'm walking it back, but I just had a change, an opinion where I felt like Trump had momentum coming off of like the shooting and like all of that. But I think after the Republican National Convention, he didn't capitalize on that like he should have. I think that like the interest and the hype that he could have garnered with that moment, he didn't really do that. And with this new announcement with Kamala coming into this week, with her, getting the Obamas on board and getting all this money coming in, and she got Beyonce as her, that coming in, and don't let Taylor Swift put out a, something like that, and it might really be scary. So she's got full force right now.
And so his statement was, Kamala's like a childless cat ladies with no direct stake in America.
What does that mean?
Wow.
I mean, I think it's just funny that we're actually it takes me back that we're really having this conversation. Of course, Joe says Trump and Vance, two peas in a pod. He's perfect for Trump. Lunatic number 2.
Yeah, correct.
I agree.
I mean, I'm just, the more I think about it, because I think that we really are seriously having a conversation about this individual being the president of the United States. And obviously he's already been the president of the United States.
Yeah.
But it seems like his appeal has to be going backwards based upon, if you just sit there and you listen to some of the things that he says, is just unbelievable. Like, I mean, it's just, and that people are doing, I mean, it's really cult-like. You know what I mean? It's really cult-like. And the hatred it comes from a place of ignorance and hate. A lot of it does. Because, I mean, you cannot, you tell me one thing that he brings to the table that is good for America as a country. I'm waiting on that. What is it that he brings to America that is above and better than anybody else? What really is it? I mean, that's what and it's almost like when we talk, like, let's just say, we have people like, Kanye West and all these other people who were backing him and wanting him to become president. It was almost like they were, they are speaking in general terms. You know what I mean? Like nothing really specific that they can really point to during his administration that would suggest that he can do anything positive for this country. I'm not getting it, man.
Yeah.
It says, one person says economy and border, and that's all he gets. But this is the problem. What's going on at the border? He really hasn't done anything that anybody else did. I mean, the borders were tighter during the Obama administration than they were during his administration. More people got deported during the Obama administration than during, Trump's administration. So, he never was going to build a wall. That was never going to work. And it is he's playing on fear. He said that after me, he said that it's all, basically he's saying that if you don't elect me, it's all over. And if you elect me, then you never have to worry about anything else after me. Once you elect me, you'll never have to vote again. He literally said that.
The fact that hasn't been talked about as much as he really basically said, like, I'll be your last president. Right. Like, I'll be the last president. You don't have to worry about anything. Now, we know, like, that's, of course, not true. But at the same time, it's like, I don't see enough people coming at him for that. And like, even on his side, because, like, what does that even mean?
But he might have been thinking from the perspective of a dictator.
That's
right.
How that's the only way I can take it.
Yeah. If I'm you vote me, and then I'm going to establish something that's going to keep me here for a while. Because that's the mind of the dictator, right? Especially when you're tyrannical. In these other countries, they've been in power for years. They do years. So maybe that's his mindset. And then they, of course, the economy and stuff like that. But and him, enforcing all these tariffs and stuff like that. I just think that how can you enforce tariffs and stuff like that on countries that you owe? Right. So I don't know, man. I don't see his game plan, but I don't see what the difference would be from one or another. I just would like to see some difference.
The irony is that basically they see Trump as kind of like the anti-politics, like it's no longer business as usual. And it's like, now it's like, he's kind of like the counter. He's got these people, running and got them on their heels and toes, so to speak. But the reality of it is that basically that's exactly what it's all politics. Well, his presidency and the way he does things is the epitome of politics, dirty politics. The only difference between him and everybody else is it's a lot more obvious. Nobody believes that. It's kind of like, okay, when he becomes the president of the United States, like people say, well, you're going to sit down with, like is it his nephew that wrote a memoir or something about Trump and talked about how racist he was and some of the rhetoric and how easily he would say the N word and how terrible of an individual he really is as a human being, not to mention the fact that he has, the felonies that he has, like 34 or however many it is, which nobody else could do that. There's just no way anybody with that type of record could do it. That's the first thing. The second thing is my thoughts were how sexist the country really is.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because he says they're talking about, the allegation of Kamala Harris having relationships with a married man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how, making reference to, and I'm not going to go into it on this show, but some references about, similar to like Monica Lewinsky type of stuff, right? But, then you got Trump, right? Who basically, he's, like is that the Stormy Daniels? And basically, so in other words, promiscuity is okay for him, but it's not for her. Allegedly for her, the allegation of it. So I mean, clearly, why don't you? I mean, if you're trying to go after her, that just shows the bias and the prejudice when it comes to the whole thing, because clearly he has an issue when it comes to women, and he's been married 3 or 4 times. Not to mention some other things. I mean, the way he treats women. But when but nobody sees anything wrong with that. However, when it comes to the issue of Kamala Harris and the allegations of her being promiscuous, then it becomes an issue. You get the same people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's almost like you're never going to change these people's minds by being rational, because it's an irrational decision to be with, to begin with. And so when we go on Instagram and Facebook and podcasts and different things, and we make these arguments, people aren't going to really change their minds based upon any type of like rational thinking, because they have an agenda, and the agenda has nothing to do with what is best for the country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it also reminds you about when people used to make statements about the country, and how the country was racist, and how which clearly we know that.
Yeah.
But how it continues to be so racist, and how these people really think, and how there was a degree of it that seemed almost like too conspiracy type. You know what I mean? It's like like I know it exists, but it ain't. Is it really like that?
Yeah.
And now it's like, dang, it's really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That you really have people that are. I always ask myself this question, and I guess, we can chime in on something else after this. But I remember I used to always ask myself this question: how could that institution of slavery and post-slavery racism exist? How could human beings allow something, not the slave, necessarily the slave owners, but how could society allow that to happen? You know what I mean? I think the ones who said, because you got to figure that everybody said there was only a few people who owned slaves, supposedly, but it thrived because so many people sat around and allowed it to happen.
Exactly.
And now you're thinking, how could so many people allow something like that to happen? And as a kid, I remember, it used to just like puzzle me. But now, I can see it.
Yeah.
That people are going to, there's large numbers of individuals that are going to allow someone like that to get into the Oval Office.
Yeah.
It's the power of propaganda. It's the power of being seen. I look at Trump almost like a football coach. You know, like when you go into a locker room before a big game, it's like it's not like the speech you give isn't about the game. It's about you just know little key points, little words, little phrases, little stories you can tell to get them to okay, yeah, we're focused on this. And with Trump, he's like, oh yeah, they want to take your money away, they want to take your jobs away. They're these people, they hate you. These people are coming in and they're killing and they're doing all of these things. And he's basically gotten these people to believe that without any true facts or basis on anything, that everything that he's saying is true. And he talks to them. He has these little phrases, drain the swamp, and of course, make America great again. And he has these little short catchphrases they can cling on to. And if you ask them like what he's really talking about, no idea. But whatever they said, he said on that stage, whatever he said on his speeches, whatever he said in these little videos he puts out, it gets them going. And I feel like a lot of people are voting based off of him and not what he's saying. And that's been the case. It's cult of personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But right now it's a smut game. It's like you say, it's propaganda, but it's a smut game as well. But here on one hand, you have to weigh out, what Trump then been through, what he done said, opposed to what Kamala did back in her days as being a prosecutor. You have to weigh them hand in hand. And then there's a and I always come back to this point, there's a large segment of the people that looks at both of them and look at their option, whether even it was Joe, if it was Joe in office, there's still that large percentage of people that look and say, well, is the voting polls a formality? You know what I'm saying? Is it just, is it already written as to who's going to be there? You see what I'm saying? And like, I believe what you were saying is he's not getting there. He's not going to get there. And so it's already written that he's not going to get there. I tripped off the Simpsons. Simpsons and already, they didn't already predict
so
that. They got the same outfit that she got on, years back. I'm like, man, come on, man. If they predict this one, man, look at here. We know something, right?
Yes, it's crazy. I mean, and the ones that are like, trying to say, there's nobody to vote for, right? Or, why am I going to vote for her? Because she's not really done anything for Black people. Or, the type of prosecutor that she was, like you mentioned, that's a huge issue. It's kind of one of those things where, you cannot, that's why some of the problems that we're going to face in our community falls clearly within that same rationale of, the fact that I'm not going to vote, or I'm not going to vote for her because of what she hasn't done anything for Black people. Clearly he hasn't either. Right. So, the reality of it is that when it comes to the people or marginalized people and they're making their decisions as to who to vote for, because clearly you're almost always in the president's situation stuck with one or two individuals, you're going to have to go with one or the other because we need to change the way we do our politics. Is it their fault that they run this way, or is it our fault because of the way that we do our politics? Now, let me give you an example of our thought process. They're going to vote. They're rolling with him no matter what. Right?
Yeah.
Even with 34 felonies. Now, if we had somebody who happened to be Black in the exact same situation, we wouldn't have to worry about them talking about him. Could you imagine a conversation that we would have if there's a Black dude running for president who had 34 felonies? What we would say?
Oh, wow.
He wouldn't have got that far.
We would. We don't have to worry about them.
Yeah.
We would just basically blow him out like he got 30. Who he think? Man, come on, man. What's wrong with us? So the reality of it is that basically, we basically are the mouthpiece for them. Right. I was watching something on TV not too long. It was actually on YouTube, and there was a conversation about. Actually, it was on Facebook, and I'm assuming it was a YouTube video where they were asking one of the Grand Wizards of the Ku Klux Klan as to what's their actions and disliking black people and stuff like that. He says, well, we don't have to do anything anymore anyway, because basically all I have to do is just drop some guns off in the middle of the hood, and they just kill each other. We ain't got to do it anymore. You see what I mean? So, and it's the same thing, is that basically even when we look at, and we've had this conversation before, the attacks sometimes that we impose on each other, like whether we're talking about, podcast. I mean, the podcasts are full of throwing shade. You know what I mean? I mean, we're just consistently trying to go after each other for one reason or another, because we're not black enough. But is it really you're not black enough, or is it an issue of shade? Because sometimes one of the worst things that happens is that when I can assure you, when you're flourishing, then we're going to be the first one. There's going to always, not us, but there's always going to be those individuals within our community that will always see their success as our failure. You know what I mean? And oftentimes that's the issue. Now, when it comes to the issue of Kamala Harris, there's the first thing about the fact that her mother's Indian. Yeah. The second thing is she's married to a Jewish guy. White guy. The third thing is like how she got there. She's unintelligent. She's all these things. But who are they going to put in the seat? If we think that we're going to put in, that if anybody's going to get to that level without, like it's going to be perfect, then that'll never happen. Because human beings aren't perfect. Exactly. Human beings are flawed. And you're always going to find things about individuals that, it's the same thing when we talk about Biden. Nobody talked about Biden and his the war on drugs and his policy about putting black people under the jail during the crack that was he was driving that. Yeah. But, that wasn't an issue. You see what I'm saying?
And another thing was an issue that nobody brought up, him taking that full pay ad out on those Central Park 5. Took a full paid ad out of him, and they was innocent.
Are you talking about Trump?
Yeah. When he took that, nobody's bringing that up. But I look at, does the good outweigh the bad? What good can come of this? And it's the same thing that when I look back to the time of Barack Obama when he became president, what it did to the mindset of young African American men. Right? No matter what you said about him, it basically empowered, you know what I'm saying? So many young black men that, look, if I can see somebody that can obtain this office, they might have been thinking that this was impossible. And so the same thing, I think, with Kamala Harris, what it's going to do in terms of not looking at her past. I'm not even looking at that. What it can do in the future for young African American or young women of color that can look up to her and say, look here, man, it would empower them greatly. So that's the way I look at it. That's my take on it. But on the flip side of it, if I'm going to throw Trump up there, what is that going to do to the psyche of individuals that's saying that this dude got all of these felonies, right? Because the first thing that I'm going to do is that if that dude get in power, I'm gonna petition the court. I want all my rights back.
Yeah.
If the president could do it, why can't you know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's a delicate situation, but I think there's some good going to come out of it.
Yeah, and then on the add-on to that, like on the flip side, if you're a Trump supporter, of course we know like what seeing Obama win did for like young African American kids, but if you're a Trump supporter, and I've heard this take before, Trump getting elected also made you believe that you really could do anything. And like from a very broad standpoint, it's like this man had no political history at all, worked in business, was bad at business, said all of these wild things, and still got the highest position in the nation. And it's like, if you're somebody watching at home, it's like, man, if he can be president, maybe, you know what I'm saying? Maybe I can. Like, this isn't going to seem to be the brightest guy, and like, it's everything is about perspective. But I think that Kamala, Kamala has everything we need right now. I think that there's like, as far as the options, I feel like as far as, everything going on, this is the perfect candidate at the perfect time. It's a perfect shift. She has great momentum going in. I think I saw today we are officially 100 days out. And I think she's got, the Democratic National Convention coming up. I think that she's going to get a really big push. I think that a lot of the critiques you can have for her really are not going to stand and not hold any weight. I think if there's any backlash or anything, that really hurts her and takes away from her momentum, it's going to have to be self-inflicted. And I don't know. I think she's really tight. I don't see her sort of slipping in that regard.
And who she chooses as a VP is definitely going to propel her even higher, depending on who it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she's gonna. I think she's gonna clearly come out on top. I mean, that's my prediction. As I told you, I don't think that they're going to allow him to win. I just don't think that's just going to happen because I don't think that we can afford that at this juncture.
Yeah.
I think that, again, going back to the issue, going back to the issues and the things that she's done, and I'm the type of person who sees the good in people first. You know what I mean? Because you can always see if you're going to go for the bad in people, then then you have to look at it this way. It's like you saying, well, she's never done nothing for black people. Does that mean you vote for Trump?
Correct.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
That's what you're saying.
So it's kind of like one of those things where, it really, I mean, when we go back into any time that you're going to have someone who's going to be the president of the United States, I believe that all presidents should have done more for black people, no matter who they are, whether you're talking about Barack Obama, whether you're talking about whoever it is. I think that there's a lot more that could be done for black people. Or should be done for black people, considering the circumstances and considering, what has happened and kind of where we are, as a society, right? Or as a country. But at the same time, I mean, as far as Kamala Harris being the president of the United States at this juncture, I think that, are we stuck with a situation where one says, well, we ain't got no choice. She's better than the other guy, so I'll vote for the other guy. Well, yeah, because that's really the way politics works. Because there's no way that an individual is going to appease everybody in the country. Because you feel like I want this person to be the president of the United States because I have everything. These are the things that I want. And unless this person can come in and give me everything that I want, then, they shouldn't be the president of the United States. It doesn't, there's nowhere you can go in the entire world where that exists. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So, that's just the way that the program works. You're going for the person who's going to give you, the best shot of getting the best opportunities that you possibly can.
Yeah.
But I think the real conversation that we should have about Obama's administration, on one hand, one says, well, Obama could have done a lot more for black people. But on the other hand, that was an opportunity for black people to have done more for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's never really in the conversation. Because now that we've got this person here, then the idea is, how do we kind of turn the thing around so that we can basically help each other move forward as a group of individuals? Because I mean, it's either going to be one. You can't have both the best, both worlds.
Yeah.
Right. You can't say, okay, I'm going to go. What the question is, when you ask the question about what has Barack Obama done during his administration, we also have to ask the question, what have there's always, what has he done for the community? I've heard that question, like people like they put him up there, like you'll see down, what has he done for the community?
Yeah.
The question is, what have you done for the community?
Yeah. Correct.
You know what I mean? It's like, how can someone sit up there and throw shade all the time? What has he done for black people? What has he done for black people? What has he done for black people? That's what they're going to, because they don't, anytime that you're in the spotlight, they're going to put you, they're going to come at you like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, what has he done? Then if, you either a sellout or, you don't do enough. So you're dealing with all of that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm not really keen on the fact of, I see a lot of that where they're saying, well, they don't want her to become president for these different reasons. And, again,
Yeah.
I don't see too much legitimacy behind some of the things that they're saying, to be quite honest with you, because you're talking about the president of the United States of America, and you wait for a unicorn to come up and show up and do something that's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And it's sad that our mindset is like that. What have you done? A lot of, and it seems as though when someone becomes powerful, or whether it be a celebrity or athlete or whoever, right? When they get to take themselves up out of the hood or wherever, right? It's always, what have you done? People are not going out and publicizing, hey, I did this or I did that. You don't see the donations that go on. And people just stuck in this mindset that people don't do certain things, and even when it goes back to showing, what someone did in the beginning of their quest to become better or to become president, like it's one of those things where you're gonna always point this finger, but like you said, no one is perfect, right? But now on the flip side of it, you can go back in history and you can pinpoint something about this about Kamala, but you can't come forward and say, this dude just did this, right? This dude just did this within the last year, within the last couple of years. But here you pinpoint something that's been done years and years ago. So how does that away? Let's say she didn't corrected her ways or amended her ways or whatever it may be, right? But now you got this grown man that's sitting up there vying to be a president and still got these vile ways, right?
Yeah.
They still got this tongue. They still got this diabolical way of thinking. How does that outweigh it? And I always look at the point as, have he even came forward and say, hey, I apologize for pointing the finger at these 5 young men?
I ain't gonna do that.
Nah, I think that,
That's what I'm saying.
you gotta have a soul and a conscience for that. I don't know if he has that.
Exactly.
Speaking to just like the earlier point about, people expectations for people in power and specifically like the president, the position of the president. I think that the thing that always leads me back to is just the importance of education in general, because I unfortunately have found out recently how many people really think that like the president is just the okay, this happens and then it happens. And I saw a joke on Twitter. They were like, unless you can name the 3 branches of government, you probably should not be able to speak on what's going on a daily basis in politics. And I just think there's so many people who are very much are just like ignorant to how just our government works and really how most things work. Like, even if you just think about people like in your community, or like the mayor or something like that, or like the people over a certain organization, people usually think that the face of things is the way that the person that's making everything happen, not seeing the people behind that. And that's usually, a terrible way of thinking. Like, even with, Trump, he still, as much as he might claim everything going on, he's still like just the figurehead. He's the face. There are people behind him who are just as evil, who are doing all of these things, making these things happen. Like, and I think that, going back to what like Zulu said, it's just moving forward. I really don't think that, I've really sort of embraced that more about
There we go. Yeah,
we were speaking the truth.
Right.
Speaking truth to power. They throw us off.
Yeah, man. I mean, then that's kind of also the issue when it comes to, politics and how we make our decisions and how we choose to choose to vote. I'm going to give you an example, like the Bronny James situation and how they really dogging that kid out because they're saying it's nepotism and he really can't play. And I mean, I know that they're in the spotlight, but I'm always reminded how cruel people really are.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's just, we're just living in a cruel world. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm just going to keep it 100. Even if I thought it, I wouldn't say it. If I thought that LeBron James' son was only in the NBA and could not really play, and it was just because of his daddy, it would be difficult for me to say that. And the reason why is because what would be the benefit of me coming on any platform to criticize the fact that he's playing basketball? And just like the owner of the LA Lakers, she didn't earn that.
Correct.
Her father gave it to her. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it goes into our own, that when we talk about people having a slave mentality, that's kind of a slave mentality. Because the thing about it is that really, if you really that type of person and you really about something, you're not going to look at people who are extremely, extremely successful, right? They're not saying that those things about other people, because who has the time? I'm looking for the good in individuals.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so it's like, for example, like in like Club Shay Shay, when basically going in on all of those individuals who basically, were have done these bad things, like stealing jokes, and they're doing this and they can't do that and whatever. I mean, the reality of it is that I could tell you good things about every one of them,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, for example, like Cedric the Entertainer. I mean, I think he's really, really funny. I really, really enjoy watching him, his work. I think that he's a stand-up guy. I think that he seems to be a nice guy. I mean, that's what people say in the industry. And he, unless he's put in a situation, he really is not saying anything negative. He seems to be a class act.
Yeah.
Right. When you talk about Steve Harvey, for example, I know that he had that photo out with Trump, but he has an organization that caters to young men.
Mm-hmm.
He brings them out. He does positive things for them.
Exactly.
He actually is a pretty good motivational speaker.
Yeah.
I know that there was this issue about his son, and that he did something slick to kind of get his son away from his mother.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You heard about that?
No, I heard about a whole lot, but not that one.
Well, yeah. Well, they tried. You know what I'm talking about? Well, the thing about it is that basically he's a black man that does anything he possibly can to get his son. Is that really a bad thing?
No.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. But
so on the flip
side of it.
On the flip side, somebody
sometimes, but I hear you.
On the flip side, yes. On the flip side, there's always this thing about he didn't want to have anything to do with me. But the fact that he basically was willing to use everything that he possibly could to get his son, right?
Mm-hmm.
The point is, I'm not in that fight, and my point is, and I'm trying to really take up from people.
Yeah.
But my point is that basically, I mean, I'm here to see the good in people.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be sexy, it may not get you a lot of clicks, it might not get you a lot of attention.
Yeah.
But why can't we? If we had a show about the good about the good of individuals, nobody would watch it, because there's good and bad in everybody.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? If I'm going to, I can find it something negative in any and everybody.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're going, I just hate to see people go back and forth with stuff like that. You know what I mean? And now that we live in a society where if you put that on the head, like if you're flipping through YouTube, which one are you going to stop at?
Mm-hmm.
And some of that stuff is tricking.
Yeah.
They're tricking you, because sometimes it ain't even legit.
Yeah. We want to see the chaos. We want to see the fight.
Yeah. And that's the same thing when we talk about, Kamala, Harris. There's obviously going to be things that, that are going to be clearly, they can say negative about her, and it's going to really, the gloves are going to come off, and it's going to go more and more. But what is her positions on the issues like right now? Mm-hmm. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, so I don't know, but I do know one thing for sure: Trump ain't gonna win this time. He's not going to win this time, man. They ain't going to let him win, man. That's what's going to happen. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah.
They cannot. I'm telling you, man. They cannot allow this dude to become the president of the United States. They cannot allow it to happen.
Mhm.
Even if they have to do whatever they need to do, if they got to do something slick or something tricky, they cannot allow this man to be the president of the United States, because I don't think that people understand the implications of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, come on. I mean, to me, I'm thinking, well, are people sleeping? I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, I don't even know how it's even close. I mean, it's like, are you really absolutely sleeping? I mean, that's real. What Trump is doing is not really the story.
Mhm.
The kind of person that Trump is not really the story. The story is how these people supporting him.
Correct.
It's like, how are we having a calm conversation about this cat?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, even the worst. I mean, let's say we were in Jim Crow South. And let's just say that the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan was getting ready to run for mayor of Birmingham, Alabama. Right?
Mhm.
Somebody would say, "Hey, Joe," not you necessarily, but I'm just using the name Joe. That we really don't need that kind of attention in Birmingham right now, right?
Mhm.
They would have a sincere conversation during Jim Crow South, right? About how the optics of that wouldn't look right. We're talking about Jim Crow South. Now, here we are in 2024 with a similar type of situation.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. And it speaks to the mindset of the individuals.
I don't know. I don't know how it's happening, man. I don't know how is that happening, Joe? Huh? I mean, that's just like, so everybody's jumped on the bank. It's like, do you see how they dogged out Biden? You see how we really went at Biden?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not saying that, there was issues there, but at the same time, we almost acted like this dude was like he was really that good.
Yeah.
A sleepy Biden is better than a woke Trump. We were literally like, man, can you believe what Biden said? Can you believe man, they shouldn't have put him out there like that, man. It's like we completely like, what is going on with this dude?
Yeah.
Huh? Like you, I don't know, man. Talk to me.
I mean, I think one of my biggest critiques of I think I said this on a previous episode, is like the Democratic Party is that they try to be so, highbrow and classy. And sometimes it's like, you gotta get in the mud, man. And I feel like with Biden, we were so quick to tear him down. I mean, if you really think about this, this process came together really quick. Us identifying him as being too old, and then people saying whispers starting to come about him stepping down, then Kamala coming up. That was a 2 to 3 week process. It happened really, really quick. And it's just the other side's not doing that. They riding till the wheels fall off. And it's a morality thing. And it's life is about perspective. And there are some people who just view Trump as just this truth teller, who's fighting against the powers that be, and he's speaking the truth to power, and he's just encouraging these people, and we can't see it.
Yeah.
But they can't see our perspective either. And it's a weird situation, because it's that exact example is what makes this country beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But at the exact same time, it also could lead to our demise.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing.
I think we can't be too surprised when we know that racism exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can't be too surprised to know that this man has so many people in this country that follows him. I mean, because when you look at it, it's kind of scary. in a sense that that it's that many people that believes in this man's state of mind. So that tells me that their state of mind is identically the same. If they can agree with him, right? But it's like you on one side of it, you can say that Kamala did some bad things, right? She did some bad things to black people, right? But on the flip side of it, you got this whole segment of people, right? Millions of people that believe like this dude, and you would rather put them in power opposed to somebody that just did it. It don't make sense to me.
Two issues. First one is Joe said Trump's core followers are in the millions. So how frightening we have to share this country with them. Is that because that's frightening because they're in the millions that we have to share the country
in a million.
with? Yeah. That's the first thing. The second thing is sometimes, man, we don't fact check. I mean, when we say that Kamala Harris was doing, or when we say that she was doing certain things, do we really know what she was doing?
No, and I'm glad you said that.
Because see, people, I mean, it's just kind of like we throw it out there, but what are during that period of time, they said that she was the district attorney of San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And that office had prosecuted a lot of individuals. The reality of it is that what do we know about the prosecution? Was she prosecuting anybody more than anybody else? If the police department referred somebody to San Francisco, then what do you do? Do you say, well, were these convictions that were unwarranted? How many of those convictions came back and we found out that basically they were trumped up or they were not legitimate? I mean, it's a lot that goes into that. So when someone says that she's like putting black folks, convicting black people at a significant number, I mean, the question is, that's a very vague statement.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really know how true that statement is, because every black prosecutor is prosecuting black people.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if it's really anything different, but I think it's a narrative that was created, and oftentimes these narratives don't even come out of our communities, but they kind of throw them out there.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying,
I see what you're saying.
I'm just saying that even if you did believe this, how are you going to weigh these two evils? Which one is the greatest? Because, like you say, you gotta choose a side, right? And so what I'm saying is, even if you believe this is what she did, okay, cool, you believe this is what she did, but now you're going to take your negative energy, right, and you're going to put it to somebody that got this millions and millions of followers that think like you see what I'm saying, that thinks like him. I mean, what type of society are we that we want to shift? We want to jump ship from over here and then run over here expecting something that's going to be grandiose, something that's going to be, some fantasy or utopia. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Why would you want to jump ship? You got to pick. And
this is the thing is but I think that's kind of the issue, is that I think that I'm not saying you, but it's a narrative that people have ran with, but it might not even be a legitimate narrative. Because if you ask someone how many people did she prosecute and what was her rate of prosecution, 90%, 98%, or 99% of the people, they couldn't even articulate how that even came about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we really don't know whether that's true. I think that that's probably a conservative right-wing interjection that people have. I mean, if you're a prosecutor, you're going to have problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because people don't I'm a defense attorney, so there's a lot of prosecutors that I probably have a problem with. But the reality of it is that she was a prosecutor.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that she was going to put people in jail because, that's what prosecutors do.
Yeah.
They put people in jail. So, the reality of it is I personally don't even know, the numbers, but they say, the sister, I heard she was down there, man, she was really putting people in behind bars and putting them in jail. And all prosecutors put people in jail. The question is, what was she really doing that was really different? Because that's how prosecutors run. They run on that.
Mm-hmm.
They run on this whole thing. And that's kind of and again, when we come, and then the next thing is, like they say, well, what has she done for black people? I mean, The question is, what have you done for black people? That's what that's the real question that every person has to ask their question.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you should say. What have you done for black people? What is it on a daily basis that you have done to basically, I find that, I know it's not popular for podcasts or for radio to say things like that, but I'm always disturbed with people who bring about this whole thing about what's an individual doing when you're not, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You really, I mean, come on, man. That's just, to me, that's just crazy. I mean, why can't you get up and just say, hey, man, I have a program and a plan. I think this is what we need to do when we go back into, the next 4 years. I see this as a way of how we need to change the way that we're doing it.
Yeah.
That's a productive conversation. But when you sit up there and just say, well, what have you done for me? Then, that to me is like, kind of punctified, right?
Yeah.
To sit there and start talking about what somebody did for you. It's like, man, come on, man, what are you doing?
Exactly.
And I think that we have to start changing that conversation. And if we go back into the next 4 years with saying we're going to start doing more and everybody's going to participate, then and not wait until you get in trouble or your friend get in trouble or your brother get in trouble, get up and really be part of that movement. I think that until we do that, we're always going to continue to have a problem, man.
Yeah.
So that's a different story.
Yeah.
But at any rate, we thank everybody for tuning in for this edition of Justice Watch. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, same channel. Until that time, stay blessed.
Miss your favorite show? Download the podcast at kcaaradio.com.
If you like to safely leverage bank money to earn double-digit returns, income tax-free, with guarantees and no downside market risk, how can you do this?